It is time to dive into the Spider-Verse and rank these 8 Spider-Man movies from the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie all the way up to the brand new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, worst to best. How would you take these 8 movies and rank them worst to best? Let's talk about that in the comments. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my ranking of these 8 Spider-Verse Spider-Man movies worst to best. I'm excited to dive into this ranking and talk about some of the adjustments I made to my last Spider-Man movie ranking, because going back through and doing theological analyses out of Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 and all that stuff, it kind of has, you know, got stuff more fresh in my mind and changed my opinions on some things. So I'm super excited to dive into that and talk about this. How would you rank these 8 movies worst to best? Let's talk about it in the comments. Number 8, Spider-Man 3. This one is still in my last place because it's corny and it's just completely cluttered. I mean, they just used way too many villains in it, and by throwing in so many villains and plot lines and storylines, they totally misused their best one, which was Venom. First off, I'm not sure that Topher Grace was really the perfect actor for that role, so even if he was the perfect match for that role, it didn't come off that way because they didn't use the villain properly. They wasted one of the better Spider-Man villains. But the positives of the movie is I love the underlining theme of him having to forgive his enemies, how he had to forgive Sandman for killing his Uncle Ben, and learning to let that anger go and realize that we all make bad choices, and learning to forgive others, and that forgiveness is the path to freedom and not vengeance. Like, I thought that was a really good plot line, and that was like the best part of the whole movie, how they played that out, how the black suit amplified the hate and the vengeance in him, how it brought it to the surface, and now he had to deal with it and overcome it. Like, that was by far and away the best part of the movie, and I could say nothing negative about it. But no, it's overall pretty corny and cluttered. Number 7, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So speaking of cluttered, this one was definitely cluttered. Now, everybody says it's so cluttered because of 3 villains, because of the Rhino, Electro, and then, you know, they threw in Green Goblin. But Rhino was such a small part that, to me, that's just insignificant. I feel like what's cluttered is like all the different storylines and plot lines they were trying to run together, so it makes everything feel so cluttered. And then to bring Spider-Man up against the Rhino, like one of his big villains, and it ends with a shot that was in the trailer, yeah, that just makes you feel a little bit ripped off, that you already saw the final shot in the trailer, so that helped nothing. That the Rhino had almost no part in this movie that was really of any significance. It did feel kind of shoved in there at the end. But then Electro, he was done a little bit hokey. I thought he had some really good scenes and good moments, like once he was Electro. Like, I love the scene in Times Square where he and Spider-Man are facing each other off, and Spider-Man's trying to talk sense into him. But, you know, the way the musical score is, you hear Electro's thoughts, and it's like you can just hear the hatred and the bitterness and all the stuff that's building in there. And I thought that was really well done. It gives us this inside look at this character and what he's thinking, and so I thought that was kind of cool. And I felt like Harry was a cool character until he became Green Goblin. I think his Green Goblin was really, really cheesy, and I was not a fan of that segment of the movie. But when Gwen Stacy dies in that movie, that was a gut punch, man. That was done well. That was done right to me. I just, like, that was, you know, I was watching this movie on the big screen. I enjoyed it. It just hasn't aged well with me over time. But that scene still gets me because it's just so well done. The hero always saves the girl, and in this case, he shot the webbing and caught her, but man, that whiplash in her head smacking the pavement, she was gone. It's a hard scene to watch, and it just sucks, but man, I don't know. So it had a lot of great moments, and I don't hate Amazing Spider-Man 2 by any stretch of the imagination, but having gone back through some of these other Spider-Man movies, yeah, this kind of falls a little bit lower on my list. Number 6, the original Spider-Man. When I saw it as a teenager and I went with all my friends and we went and saw it right when it opened on the big screen, I was the only one in my group of friends that did not like this movie. And it's because it's so cornball. I thought the lines were so hokey. When I went back to do my theological analyses over these movies, you know, doing the theological analysis for me is like really cool, because instead of just looking at the movie on the surface, I'm trying to peel a layer back and kind of look more at what's underneath. And I had a lot of fun doing that with these Spider-Man movies, because as much as like on the surface level, I think the lines are so corny, and a lot of the scenes and setups in this movie are so corny, and it's not a movie that I'm going to rush back to anytime soon. But the underlining theme I found in this movie of with great power comes great responsibility just kind of got me this time, because it's not just about with great power comes great responsibility. It's about feeding the person you want to be now. Like, you can feed the light side of yourself now when everything's going good, and then when the pressure's on, it's that good side of you that you fed. So the good side is the side that is strong, and it's the side that's going to come out fighting and swinging when the hard times come on. And like, you had Norman Osborn, and all he's fed is the dark side of himself. So the moment the pressure was on, and he, you know, inhaled the vapor and made the goblin come out, it's that goblin that he fed. It's that dark side that he fed. So when the pressure was on, it was the dark side that came out, and it was the light side of him that was this little weak sniveling thing. With Spider-Man, it was the opposite. The moment he got his powers, he, you know, was kind of a jerk. He wanted to buy a car just to impress a girl. When his Uncle Ben was shot, vengeance welled up in him, and he used his powers to go and chase after the guy and attempt to kill the guy that killed his uncle. And he didn't exactly kill the guy, but the guy did die because Spider-Man was pursuing him, and that didn't give him any satisfaction. So he repented. He turned the other way, and because he fed that good nature for so long, that good nature came out, and he became Spider-Man, the hero that we know. So that hero's journey, I enjoyed that more watching it through this time to do a theological analysis. Number 5, Venom. This was a okay movie. I kind of put it here, like, number 5, I don't know, like, I kept going back and forth. Should this be number 6? Should this be number 5? It's here right now because, like, the stuff that was in the movie, I liked. I liked the action. I thought the movie was just a ton of fun. I loved the relationship between Eddie Brock and the symbiote. I thought that was so extremely well done. I enjoyed all of that. But like I said in my review, and it still stands now, it feels like that stuff was good, and the filmmakers knew it was good. So they wanted it PG-13 instead of R, so they cut a huge chunk out of this movie. So it feels like a bunch of builders got together, and they built a foundation, and the foundation was so good, and they got so excited, so then they just built the roof. And there's, you know, no middle and no substance here to hold the roof up, and that's what it felt like to me. Like, when Eddie realized that Venom was, like, feeding off of his organs and he was dying, the way that Eddie felt betrayed, it didn't feel like it was particularly earned for me in that moment, because it felt like at that moment, it's supposed to be 2 friends and 2 buddies, and one of the buddies found out the first buddy started their relationship with a lie, but was slowly converting and changing throughout this whole thing, and now the other buddy wants to win that friendship back. It felt like that's what that was supposed to be. It just didn't feel earned to me, because it felt like the extra stuff that continued to build that and make that scene more powerful wasn't there. It was part of the middle chunk of the building that they didn't build. But that's just my personal opinion. Overall, it was a fun movie, and if you want to watch it just for the fun, pure actionness of it, and you want to watch it to enjoy the personality of the symbiote, then it's awesome. I didn't really like Eddie Brock's character so much in this one. I know he's supposed to be a loner, kind of a nerd, and a little unrelatable, but I just felt, I don't know, it just, the performance felt a little alienating to me. And I guess that's what it was supposed to be. And Eddie Brock is supposed to be this kind of loser, because the loser of the other planet meets the loser of our planet, and that's kind of a bonding thing. I get that, but there was something about the way Eddie Brock was portrayed that kind of alienated me a little bit, but it wasn't too much, because again, I like the relationship between man and symbiote. So, I don't know. I decided to let Venom fall here at number 5, but I'm in no hurry to see the movie again, and I've only seen it the one time. So, I don't know. Maybe it should have gone a little, I don't know. You know what? It's fine. It'll be fine. Number 4, The Amazing Spider-Man. I thought the first Andrew Garfield movie was really good, and the way they did this origin story and started it off, it just held so much promise. I liked digging more into Peter Parker's parents and who were they, and how, you know, Peter's dad had actually designed the spiders. Some of that stuff was interesting in the directions it started to go, and I I kind of would not mind getting in an Amazing Spider-Man 3. And let's just finish this off. Where are we going to go with Peter Parker's parents? Like, to me, that was kind of interesting. And so I kind of enjoyed the setup of that in The Amazing Spider-Man. It kind of separated it from the Sam Raimi trilogy. So if we're doing an origin story, at least this origin story has this much of a difference going on with it. So I did enjoy that. I liked Andrew Garfield. I thought he was a great Peter Parker. I thought he was a good Spider-Man. It was fun watching him get his powers. And kind of what I liked about this one is none of the Spider-Man movies really dig into how strong is Peter Parker for me. I mean, you see him do feats of amazing strength, but you don't really see him testing that strength. So to have funny scenes where, like, he's in the bathroom and he tries to turn on the sink and breaks the sink and tries to come out the door and rips off the doorknob, and so, like, playing with the idea of now he's way stronger than he was before, playing with his spider sense. I just felt like it was overall a really fun movie. The villain has not aged well for me. So the Lizard, like, gets more and more cheesy to me every time I go back and watch the movie. But I still find the movie very enjoyable, and I liked this origin of Spider-Man. Number 3, Spider-Man 2. Yes, Spider-Man 2 went way up higher on my list this time than it did the last time I ranked these movies, because, again, me doing these theological analyses, peeling back the layers, I still feel like a lot of the Spider-Man movies in the Raimi trilogy on the surface are kind of hokey and cheesy, but as you peel back the layers, there's a lot of good stuff there. And Spider-Man 2 was always a movie that I liked and was always my favorite in the Sam Raimi trilogy. And going back to the theological analysis, I liked it so much more. And maybe it's because different movies can speak to us at different seasons in our lives. You know, I'm going through a season in my life where I'm like, okay, what's next in my life? What is the next step for me? And here I am watching a movie about Peter Parker trying to figure out what's the next step for him. Because what Peter Parker wants is to live a normal life, to be in love with Mary Jane and have none of those type of threats. He wants the regular, normal life. But he also wants to be Spider-Man. He has that urge and desire to save people from trouble. He loves being Spider-Man, so he's torn between these two worlds, and now he's this double-minded hero. And what I said in my theological analysis is it's like the Bible verse that says, you know, a double-minded person can't really expect to receive much from God, because how are they going to hang on to what they ask for? If they're being double-minded and unstable in all their ways, how can they hang on to it? And this Spider-Man was a great picture of that, of him going through a very interesting and difficult time in his life, trying to clarify what he wants and trying to organize his life. And so I thought that was a really good look at that. And plus, Doc Ock, my gosh, he's such a fantastic villain in this movie. He's just, oh, and his whole conversion at the end where he just kind of let himself go crazy and Spider-Man speaks some sense into him and he realizes it and he gives his life destroying the artificial sun that he was creating and the thing, like, just such a great villain with a great arc and a great end. So overall, Spider-Man 2, I enjoyed this way more watching it through to do a theological analysis for it. Number 2, Spider-Man Homecoming. I love this version of Spider-Man. I had so much fun with Tom Holland as this character. I think he's a fantastic Peter Parker and a fantastic Spider-Man. The one thing I wish in Homecoming is that they would spend more time with his Spidey senses. It was kind of sad to me they just sort of ignored it altogether in Spider-Man Homecoming. So that's kind of my biggest weakness with it. Overall, I thought it was a fantastic movie. I love Michael Keaton as the Vulture. I mean, it's kind of like this 1990s Batman-esque hardcoreness that he brings to the role, and it just worked so well. I love the scene where Peter goes to pick up Liz for the dance, and he opens the door, and there's Liz's father, Michael Keaton, there to, you know, drive them to the prom. The whole awkward drive in the car. I mean, I just feel like Tom Holland had so many great moments in that movie, and my favorite moment is when all that, like, building has collapsed on him, and he's looking at his reflection in the water. Half the face is Spider-Man mask, half the face is Peter Parker mask. So it's kind of like Spider-Man 2 choosing the identity, and he's like, come on, Spider-Man, come on, Spider-Man, and he pushes all that rubble up. My gosh, he found the strength within him, and he didn't depend on the suit. It was himself, and I did like the suit. I thought Karen the AI was great, and it was funny watching them, like, experiment with all the different webbing options, having the little spider tracker and stuff like that. It just separated this version of Spider-Man from all the other versions we keep seeing rebooted over and over again on the big screen. So I had a lot of fun with this version of Spider-Man. Number 1, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This movie was just so so freaking fantastic. I mean, it took all these Spider-Men and all these Spider people from all these different Spider-Verses, and it brought them together without it being overdone and cluttered and just trying to figure out who's who and what's what and what's going on. It did a great job introducing me to each and every single one of these characters. Miles Morales was just hilarious. The scene where he got the spider bite, and it's this great big dramatic moment where the radioactive spider bites him, and in slow motion it goes into his bloodstream as the poison goes in there, mutating his genes and genetics and all that stuff, and then it zooms back out and he just looks at it. I mean, moments like that are just absolutely classic, and I love stuff like that. It is hilarious, just the simple thing of him trying to figure out how to wall crawl, and he just hand keeps sticking to things and he can't unstick his hand. Like, that is just hilarious to me, and so it was fun watching him learn all that. I didn't know Miles Morales could turn invisible or had like electrical shock powers. So those were nice little surprises to me, and it was fun watching him try to figure it out. Great emotional moments like when Peter Parker says, okay, turn invisible on command. Come on, electrocute me on command. Oh, you can't? Well, then you're not coming with me. And talking about how stepping out as Spider-Man is this leap of faith. You never know when you're ready, but it's a leap of faith. And so, like, those moments were so awesome. And Uncle Aaron as the Prowler was such an amazing scene, because you have, you know, Miles Morales who so looks up to his Uncle Aaron, and he's just a great character, and he's hilarious with the whole shoulder thing, you know, talking about a girl, put your hand on her shoulder, say, what's up, or whatever the line was. It was just freaking hilarious the way they set all of that up. But no, it turns out he's the Prowler, and the way they revealed that in the movie, it was so powerful. And then that moment where the Prowler is about to kill Miles Morales, Spider-Man, and he lifts up the mask, and his uncle sees who it is, and he's like, ah, crap! And then he gets shot by Wilson Fisk and dies, and he becomes Miles Morales' like Uncle Ben, that Uncle Ben moment. And then the whole moment with all the other Spider people from the Spider-Verse is saying, we are the only ones who can understand the pain that you're experiencing and what you're going through. There were so many amazing, touching moments like that, moments that just gave so much heart to the movie, plus so many hysterical moments. Yeah, my favorite was Spider-Man Noir with Nicolas Cage voicing that guy and his fascination with the colors on the Rubik's Cube and wanting to take it back to his black and white universe, this little cube of color. Like, things like that were just hilarious. So I loved Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Your turn. How would you rank these 8 Spider-Verse movies worst to best? Do that in the comments, and while you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next ranking video, movie review, theological analysis, trailer reaction, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.